this leads us to our not one, but two post-credit scenes. Mid-credit scene number one is the introduction of our new Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's go over that lineup. Our mid-credit scene is set up where we see our new Guardians on this planet protecting people against these like hyena type creatures. Have our Guardians led by Rocket Raccoon, of course. We have Kraglin. We have Cosmo the Space Dog. We have Adam Warlock. And we get the introduction to Alpha Groot, which was so cool to see. But then there's a new character that we're going to talk about here. And that character goes by the name of Phyla, who, when I saw it the first time, I couldn't make out what it was. Phyla, but it's Phyla. And Phyla actually is this Galaxy in the comics. I believe she is part of the 2008 run. And there's a couple other runs that she's in there. Also goes by the name of Quasar. It is known to be the daughter of Mar-Vell, who is a Kree. So I don't know if they're going to tie into all that stuff there with her being the daughter of Mar-Vell, who we met in Captain Marvel. Is she a Kree, or are they going to take creative liberties and kind of do their own thing with this character Phyla, who goes by in the comics a name Quasar, who Quasar is a name that many different characters within the Marvel Cinematic or the comic books have had. Ova had that name at one point, and a couple other characters, but essentially you get Dawn the name Quasar because you have the powers and you have these quantum bands, I believe is what I looked up earlier, that gives you that name, which goes back to that scene. You'll notice as the new Guardians are going to take on these creatures, she's like kind of floating in the air and cosmic things going on her wrist, which explains going back to her that the name that she goes by in the comics and those quantum bands. So I'm very intrigued to see what they do with Phyla moving forward, and if we're going to see her being aged up, because that brings me to this point here. When will we see these Guardians? When's the next time? James Gunn is doing his own thing now with the DC, being co-CEO with Peter Safran. It's been 6 years since the last Guardians. Can we anticipate another 6 years before we see this version of the Guardians again? Will they pop in? I would imagine Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars is probably like a no-brainer, but I think that we'll see a Guardians 4 prior to that film or after those films. Who would be the director of a Guardians of the Galaxy 4? Because I would have never picked out a name in a hat of James Gunn directing this great trilogy. So, there was a point in time when he was fired and he wasn't going to direct this new Guardians film. So I'm very curious on who that list of directors that they were. I think at one point Taika's name was brought up, which I'm so glad that didn't. I'm glad that James Gunn was brought back in general, but I definitely didn't want Taika around. Curious to know that short list of directors that was going to place James Gunn back when he was fired. So I can't even think of someone that I would imagine. Joseph Kosinski, the director of, Top Gun Maverick, Lyman, who's done some stuff with sci-fi. So let me know in the comments, guys, who would you like to see direct the Guardians of the Galaxy 4? If you would want to see a Guardians of the Galaxy 4, just them being used every now and then for like big event films like the Avengers. So, man, I'm very curious on when we're going to see this group again. Or if we're going to, because imagine, Adam Warlock's such a big character. I would imagine even if we don't get them as a group, we'll see one or two of the, Guardians. Give me more Rocket. Since you guys did the Genius, which was brilliant, you didn't kill Rocket. Bring him back in some way, somehow, because we know that he was an Avenger at one point during Endgame. So I'm very curious to see what we will get with this new Guardians of the Galaxy. Let me know what you all think about that new group. But that brings us to our official post-credit scene, which, as I had mentioned, the movie ends with Peter going back to visit his grandfather, which he ends up, reuniting with him. And that was a very emotional scene with his grandfather crying and being happy to see Peter again, because Peter didn't think, number one, he didn't think he was alive. And number two, last time he saw his grandfather, he was, a little mean to him in his perspective. But again, Mantis put it in perspective. He just lost his daughter. He just lost his grandson. So it's probably a lot that he was going through. At his grandfather's house, they're having cereal, and he's talking about, mowing the lawn of his neighbor and the neighbor's oldest son watching an older man cut his grass. He's just like, that's weird. Why would he just do that? But meanwhile, as you probably noticed, the newspaper that the grandfather was reading, it had the headline on there that ties into the holiday special. It said that Kevin Bacon talks about the time he was kidnapped by aliens, which if you've seen the holiday special, he was kidnapped by Mantis and Drax. So that is the end of the post-credit scene, him just eating cereal and back to mow the grass. But then we get the title card comes up and says, we will get the return of the legendary Star-Lord. So that puts in another big question. When will we see Earthbound Peter Quill on Earth? When will we see him again? Again, the no-brainer, Secret Wars, Kang Dynasty. But then the possibilities are endless as far as Earthbound heroes, ground level heroes. Man, I'm just thinking off top. Peter interacting. There's so many characters I would love to see him interact with. But one that comes to mind, we know Peter is a great thief, and we know another a great thief in the MCU, and that's Scott Lang. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of Quantumanium, I would really be down for just from an actor perspective. I'm a big fan of Chris Pratt. I think he has great comedic time, and especially just being a fan of him from Parks and Rec. And then obviously matching that with Scott Lang's Rudd's comedy, I would really think they would be a good match, banter and having some good back and forth. He already met Peter Parker. Obviously, this is the question out there when Doctor Strange dispel. Does it affect people that's not on Earth? Because obviously he doesn't know Peter. He knows of Spider-Man, but he had his mask off when they were on, Titan. So will Peter Quill know Peter Parker? That would be pretty interesting. And it's just, the list goes on and on and on about who he can interact with and maybe come across Nick Fury and he's been in space, so he has the knowledge of being in space and different coordinates. So let me know in the comments, guys. There's just so many different duos that I would love to see Peter Quill, now who's Earthbound, to interact with. But let me know what you all thought about the mid-credit scene, the post-credit scene, the end of the movie, and just the movie in general. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all are awesome. Before you all leave this video, in the meantime, like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You all are awesome. As you can see on the screen now, come and join the community. Check out my original review of this film. Check out all my MCU content. And we'll catch you all on the next breakdown.